on folks?
Or oh, for calling the students, I already have the who did not speak. Only three of them, so
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Richard. Hi, David. Hi, Ashley. Jolene. Happy Thursday. Well, we're waiting for other folks to get on. I am all cozy in a hat and on a sweatshirt today because our furnace cannot keep up with how cold it is. It was -8 this morning. I'm going to show you, look at how much snow we have. It's crazy town. So much snow. So it's freaking freezing here. Even look, I'm going to show you this too. Even my dog has his hoodie on. Hi, America. Hi, Johanna. Hi, Finley. What's up, Hugo? Hi, Jose. So glad y'all are here.
Can I just say the doggy thing on his back is the same as color with your like matching.
Matching. I love it. He's very cozy. It is so cold in the house right now. I can't even. I don't even want to look
I'm
at
in
what
the
the
house. I'm in the
temperature
house party. Huh? And I'm muted.
is. I love it. Jose and Jason, you're sitting right next to each other in class, aren't you? I love it. I love it. Hi, Alita. Hi, Andrew. Oh, it's so good to see all of you. Although you're inside today. No drills outside. Everything's cool, calm, collected. I saw on banning Instagram that it was like 100 days of school today. Is that right? Or this week? Okay, I see Richard saying yes. Okay, that's cool. A little celebration for that. Cool. All good, Jose. It's I always wonder like who's sitting next to each other and what is it like to be on Zoom like next to each other and then be on breakouts in the classroom. It's weird. Oh, I love it. Okay, thank you for the view. I love it, Jose and Jason. So good. Oh, wait, is it 100th year of banning? Oh, whoa, that's a really big deal. I thought it was like 100 days of school, which doesn't even make sense. I'm really bad at math. That's not, that wasn't so good. 100th year, that's amazing. Oh, super cool. Hey, Caitlin. Hi, Corelli. Haley, Angel. All right. Well, folks are coming on. We'll kick it off. We got a couple more folks coming on. Sheila, you want to do your thing first?
Definitely. Also, I'm gonna need to open the poll. So sorry about that. Let me go ahead and open the poll. Okay, so hi everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Please, if you come in, you have to make sure you open your camera at all times. If you can't, please let our attendance VA know so that your attendance will be considered. Also, for a student leader, please add SL before your name. No alumni is here, so I don't have to announce that, I guess. But yes, thank you everyone for coming here today, and I really do appreciate you all coming. And I do hope you learned a lot from Megan, which I know you all will learn a lot from Megan. Yeah, that's all from me. I'm gonna pass it on to you, Megan.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sheila. All right, y'all. Woo, we're taking on a big topic this week. We are going to talk about stocks, bonds, real estate, investing, all the things. And it's pretty high level today, but we'll give you um, a nice overview. And I'm really curious to learn more about what's on all of your minds when it comes to like I don't know. I don't honestly, I don't know if I knew what stocks bonds were in high school at all. So I have a lot of questions. I've learned a lot, and fortunately, my dad is actually a financial advisor. So I have had a ton of learnings from him, and he helps me out with my money a ton. So I'm pretty fortunate, but me personally, I am not a financial advisor. Look, y'all, I didn't even get the days right of how many, it makes no sense that it would be the 100th day of school. So I didn't even get that math right. So I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice, but this is an overview around what all of this is. So, thanks for popping in on the polls. We've got just a few more people that need to submit, and then we'll share that out. So I see what scares you most about investing. So losing money, not understanding how it works, market ups and downs, right? Which can contribute to that losing money. Those are all, yes, very legit concerns. What would motivate you to start investing, building that long-term wealth? Yes, my dad always says to me over and over again, you got to play the long game. You got to play the long game, Megan. So it is really so much about that long term, and riding some of those ups and downs that happen. And then, okay, so advice from someone you trust. Yep, super important. It's so great to have somebody that you can trust that can help you advise. And then if you had to choose which type of investment seems safest to you, bonds. Okay. Yeah, it's totally. Okay, cool. I feel like y'all have a pretty good grip on this. Real estate, individual stocks, index funds. Cool. This is great. Okay. I feel like we're working on a solid ground. So, before we get too far into today, I want to check in on last week. We set some goals. We reflected a little bit on last semester and your goals. And then we took some time to set some goals for this semester, this next 12 weeks. I'm curious, how many of you did at least one thing to help you work on that goal that you set last week? Can I get like thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down? At least one thing. Okay, Caitlin, nice work. David, I see a thumbs up. I see America kind of like, okay, little Yulita, cool. Okay, Angel, I see a thumbs up. Awesome. Does anybody want to share one thing that they did to work on the goals that they set last week? All right. Okay. 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 I'll share mine. I was in the gym this morning lifting. Um, I was working on my bench press and I got in some extra reps today. So that felt good, and I'm feeling real sore right here now, but it was a good workout. So the little extra reps, just that little extra bit makes a big difference in the long term. So keep working on that, on your goals. Don't forget about your goals. Keep your eyes on the prize, y'all. All right. Oh, I love it. Sheila, your goal is to sleep more, and you got 11 hours today. Sheila, that's deluxe. I love that.
I
Okay.
know. I only usually get like 4 hours of sleep a day, especially from last week because it gotten busy. And I also have to do other things after at the house and stuff. And it felt amazing getting 11 hours today. So
I love it. That sounds really nice. Okay. Well, way to go on your goals, Sheila. Thanks for sharing. That's so good. Okay, I'm going to end this poll so everybody can see the answers here. Can you all see the answers to the poll? Okay. All right, cool. Um, yeah, there is just a lot to navigate with this topic. So today, sorry, Sheila, I'm just like going totally off without slides here. Can you pop up the learning objectives for today? Just doing whatever I want today. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're going to understand how stocks, bonds, and real estate work as investment tools through ownership, lending, property income, and how risk and time and compounding affect the long-term effects of that. We're going to talk about different investment options at a very high level, the difference between individual stocks, index funds, bonds, and see how diversification reduces your risk and supports steady growth. And then we're also going to identify when and why investors choose asset types based on goals and risk tolerance, and learn why they work together in a balanced portfolio for long-term security and wealth building. I feel like my dad right now saying all this stuff. This is exactly what he would say to me. Okay. Before we get into it, I'm really curious to understand what questions you all have about these topics so that we can dig into them today. So, we're going to start off today with the breakout rooms, and I would love for you to talk about what are the questions that you have around stocks, bonds, real estate, investing that you would love to learn a little bit more about today. I can't make promises that I can answer everything. If we need to phone my dad, we can try and see what he has to say about stuff. But I would love to hear what's on your minds. So we're gonna go into breakout rooms, just 4 minutes to discuss, and then when we come back, I want to hear from all of you in your breakout rooms what questions came up so that we can try and get some of those answered today during our time together. Sound good? All right, y'all. We'll see you in the rooms and then we'll be back in 4 minutes. Would love for each person to have one question. And even if that question is, I don't even know what to ask because I don't even know what these things mean, that is such a legit question. Okay. No wrong questions here. All right, let's go to breakouts.
Okay.
Welcome back. We had some great questions from our room. I'm curious to hear what questions came up in your breakout rooms.
Can I share something that my group shared with me? Because
Yeah,
America said that she is curious to know which is the riskiest of all of those three.
yeah. That is a boy, America, that is a great question. That is a great question. I love that. Okay. Any other questions that came up for folks? Jose had a really good question. Jose, can you share what question you asked?
Oh, I asked that what is the risk to doing individual stock?
Yeah, nice, nice. Such a good question. Let me see here. And then we had a really great question. Any other questions that came up in your groups?
I can call in someone on that group on the first one.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. How about Johanna Nunez?
Is it like what questions I had or what question?
Yeah.
I put like, well, I asked like maybe how stocks work, like how do you get into it?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Thank you. How do you get into it? That's a great question. Okay, awesome. And then Sherlyn, you asked a really great question. Would you mind sharing? Do you remember what you asked?
How do we know if we're investing in the right thing?
Yeah, such a great question. Okay. All right, y'all. Well, can we get the next slide really quick before we before we dig in, this one is the last one. This is the most important slide of today. We are not financial advisors, and none of this should be considered as financial advice. So I'm going to give you some high level today. Um, and so I do think that there is so much to learn about this topic. And so I do really urge you to do some research. And if you know anybody who works in finance or someone who might be a financial advisor, it is really interesting. They will have so much more to share with you. So, what I'm going to share with you all today is the programming from Youth Champions. It's a high level. And then I'm also going to share a little bit about what my experience has been with these things. And then we'll go from there. It sounds good. Sound good? I mean, honestly, I'm gonna tell you the big thing right now. There's not always a concrete answer to the questions that you have because there are so many dependencies that impact stocks, bonds, and real estate that are really out of our control. And so I'm just going to share, we're going to share some information, but it is a really complex thing to navigate, and there's just no concrete answers because so much about this is like trying to tell the future, and that's really hard to do. So, all right, let's jump in. We're going to talk about stocks first. So, a few things. Stocks basically represent you have ownership in a company. So when you buy some stock, you then are considered part owner of that company. However, you don't really get any say in that company. You are just invested in that company. And so, um, it is a way to grow. Can I get the next? Can you just throw them all up on the slide? They kind of go together. Thank you. Okay, awesome. So and your long-term investment depends on how the company does. So if the company does well, then you get more money. However, if the company doesn't do well, you can lose money. So there is risk with going into any stock, any bond, any real estate. There is always risk, and you can be highly successful. You can be sort of successful, or you could have a very tough situation that happens and you could lose a lot of money. So it is all a risk no matter what you do. And there are things that have higher risk and lower risk. Um, and so there's a couple different ways that you can invest in stock. So the first is that they're individual stocks. So if there is a company that's on the stock market, and you can Google and find out what companies are on the stock market, you can see how much it is to buy one piece of stock. And you can buy as many shares, is what it's called, of that individual stock and say, I just want to invest in this particular company. There are also things called index funds or ETFs, and these are more like a group of different companies that are put together, and they are considered one investment. So you would buy into several different companies at once. And my experience has been that with my 401k, which is a retirement account that gets invested, um, that has been always in the space of an index fund. And so it buys stocks for me in all kinds of different companies. And so it reduces the risk because you have all kinds of different companies that you're investing in at once. And usually the majority of them are more stable companies that have been along for a long time. They are proven. A lot of times they are not the stocks that you will see kind of jump all over the place. They can, but sometimes um, they're just a little bit more slower, steady growth with those, where sometimes when people are investing in individual stocks, you might pick something that's like the hottest new company or something that's like getting a lot of buzz. And sometimes those those things can be more volatile. And so they could do really, really well, and it could be great long term. And sometimes they fail miserably, and you could lose money. So there's a lot of different things that happen within that space. The other things is that there's price increases in dividends. So um, that is so dependent on the price changes. So if the company's earnings grow, and investors are willing to pay a higher price for its future profits, then the price changes. Dividends are the cash payments that some companies choose to give to shareholders, which are from their profits. So that's where you can see price increases. There's also the stock prices, they rise and fall daily, but they grow over time typically. So in the short term, you can see volatility. So stocks can open at a very high price at the beginning of the day, and then they can fall rapidly during the day. And that could be dependent on a meeting that the company has, and they announce that they didn't have as much growth as they expected. And so then the stock drops, and then it opens the next day and it grows because this is all normal. So this happens on a day-to-day basis. And there are lots of things even outside of the company that can impact it. So there are different, when you look at, there are global impacts, there are things that happen that can impact the value of stocks that are not even related to the company that make it jump up and down. Long term, historically, markets trend upward because companies grow and innovate, but there is no guarantee. But the longer that you hold them, the more compounding the time to work, and that usually increases. And longer term investing reduces the impact of short term up and downs. So I've had some money invested since I was in my 20s for my first job when I started my first job out of college. That's when I first started putting money into a 401k account that did invest in individual funds, or sorry, not individual funds, in index funds and ETFs. And that has grown over time, and it's gone up and down. And I get a statement every month that tells me what it's doing. And some months I lose money, but then generally it will bounce back and I'll continue to grow and grow. So those are relatively safe funds that I'm invested in there. And sometimes I'll say to my dad, like, hey, should I take my money out of this? This company doesn't look like it's doing well. And my dad's like, stay steady, stay steady. And the steadiness has really proven to be true the majority of the time. However, there are some big events that can happen in the world where things really take a dip. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to real estate, and I'll give you an example of that in just a little bit. So big takeaway is that stocks are a powerful long-term growth tool because you're investing in companies that innovate, grow, and create value over time. And there is some risk. You could potentially lose all of the money that you put into this. It is not highly likely, but it is a potential. You could also make a ton of money as well. Some people play the stock market all day long and they make a ton of money. There was some question about risk. So the biggest thing is that over time, if you stay invested in the stock market, generally it does grow, but there is always amount of risk some higher risk for stocks that organizations that haven't been around as long, or sometimes when some of the more new sort of like techie organizations come onto the stock market, those can be more volatile. Where some companies who have been around for like 100 years, they are usually more stable and they can grow slower, but there's nothing wrong with a little bit of slower growth. And you can invest in both something that grows slowly and something that's a little more volatile, and have your money in different places to see what happens with it. Okay, and then okay, let's talk about bonds and then we'll come back to some of these other questions. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Oh, sorry. Let's do our workbook question first. So, would you prefer buying individual stocks or funds, and what might influence that choice? So, not necessarily a wrong answer here, but what we're really looking for is your understanding of sort of what can happen with the funds versus the like an index fund or an EFT versus an individual stock. So I'll give you about 60 seconds to answer this in your workbooks, and then we'll come back and talk about bonds. All right. Okay. I'm curious to hear, did anybody have a strong preference for individual stocks versus buying into funds? What I'm curious, what did you write in your workbook? Would somebody come off and share? Haley, what about you? Again, no wrong answers to this question. It's more preference.
So I think I would wait, can you hear me?
Yep, we can
Okay.
hear you great. Yep.
So I think I would prefer buying individual stocks because I would want my money to be my money and I wouldn't want like 20% or like 10% or a significant amount to go to whoever's funding me because isn't that how it works? Like
Yeah, a
I would
little
have to
bit.
give a little portion of my money to them.
Yes. Yep. There is,
Mhm.
and a lot of times that's no matter what. So, generally we had one question around like, how do you get into it? And there are several different ways
Yeah.
that you can buy stocks. So,
Hmm.
all of you, I think, well, I don't know if there's an age limit or not, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think you can
Uh-huh.
actually go online and like go to find different websites that you could take $5 and invest in a company and see what
Yeah.
happens. Yeah. Uh,
And I
Go ahead.
was gonna, sorry,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say too, like, I would understand, like, if I would have to invest a little bit of my money, but there's also some circumstances I heard where they could, like, trick you into signing a contract where you give more of your money to them that you
Yeah.
don't want. So I feel like I would just prefer to individually work and control my money.
Yep,
Mm,
yep,
yeah.
yep. Yeah,
But
Haley, go
sorry.
ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
But with those stocks, I was gonna ask you more about that and how we could get into that, if you
Yeah,
don't mind sharing.
yeah, that's a great question, Haley. And I actually, I'm going to be honest here. I have never invested in a single stock before. So I don't actually know how much that works. And I have the benefit of having my dad as my financial advisor. So he is the one that is watching the stock market and the different funds. And generally, there's also different types of accounts that you can have. And so those different types of accounts, like there's 401ks and there's IRAs and there's different types of IRAs, and those different accounts that I have um, are invested in different things. And so my dad really looks at a whole portfolio. So I have both the index funds and I do have some bonds, and I probably do have some individual stocks, but I couldn't even tell you what they are because he really manages those. But you're right. He every month, depending on what I make, he gets paid. So he gets like a salary. He works for Wells Fargo and he gets a salary, but then he also makes money off of the people that he's investing money for. So when the
Mm,
people that he's investing for do well, he also does well and gets paid. But if the money falls, then there's still like a base rate, but he makes more money based on how well his clients do, which is
yeah.
a great incentive because
Mhm.
the better that your financial advisor does, the better that you do, the better the financial advisor. So it's a win-win situation. Your financial advisor wants you to do well so that they also make money, right? So, but yes, there is a fee.
And if you don't mind me, can I ask you a question again?
Yeah, of course.
If
Please.
you don't mind me asking, like, from what you have seen and like to your knowledge of all the investing your dad has done, what like would you recommend us to lean towards, or what do you think we should stay away from? What like
Yeah.
has your what have you seen your dad like work with?
Yeah. Well, you were doing
Who's
your
like,
workbooks. I just tried calling him to see if he would come on and give us some advice. But and answer some of your questions, but he didn't answer, so we'll see if he calls back. But from what I've personally seen, so I have the EFTs and index funds, and those have generally gone up, um, generally over time. Sometimes they'll take a little dip, but eventually they'll come back up. So I and the things that I'm invested in, a lot of times the financial advisors, when you're younger, the advisors will sometimes put you into stocks that are a little bit riskier, meaning there's potential to make more money. And because they'll do that because you're further away from retirement, and this is with retirement accounts. So this is really the bulk of my money is in retirement accounts right now that I have invested in stocks. And that as you get older and get closer to retirement, they invest you in safer types of slower growing companies so that you don't get to retirement and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm about to retire and I just lost all my money because I was invested in something that's really risky. So that also makes a big difference. Haley, I feel like there's just so many things, but I also have some bonds, which we're going to talk about next. And then my parents really, um, we're going to talk a little bit about real estate, and my parents really urged me to um, buy a place instead of rent it when I was younger. And I couldn't afford much, but I did buy something and it turned out to be a really good investment for me. So I have kind of a portfolio of different options. I've got bonds, I've got stocks, and I've got real estate, but real estate can also, it generally goes up, but it can bounce up and down too. So there's lots of variables. Great questions, Haley. Great questions. Okay, let's talk about a little bit about bonds next, if I can get that next slide. Thank you. Okay. All right. So bonds are generally thought of as being a little more steady. And there are lots of different kinds. So the ones that we hear a lot about are the US government bonds. So they're backed by the government. And there are also corporate bonds and there are also municipal bonds. And these are basically loans that you give to companies, governments, or cities, and then um, they typically pay interest, and that's how you make money. No, 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 no. Um, sorry. So that they are generally, I'm so sorry, they are generally considered more stable than stocks, and you put them in for a shorter amount of time typically. So when we talk about bonds, they usually pay interest about every 6 months, and then you receive these payments until the bond reaches its maturity date, and then they repay that original amount back to you. So it's like they are, it's like it's a little bit like if you went to the bank and borrowed money. So a bond, for instance, I've got some money invested in bonds, and they are paying, they're in there for 6 months. And so you can't touch the money for 6 months. They get the money, you don't get to touch it. And you'll get interest that they'll pay out on whatever agreed time that is, that they time frame that they pay out. But you really don't get to touch that money. It's in there for 6 months. And when the 6 months is over, you can decide what you want to do. If you want to put it back into that bond, or if you want to have access to it. And so I've got some money that I don't necessarily want to have in some of these retirement accounts that I have, because you get penalized for taking your money out of those accounts from earlier retirement. And so I put that into bonds so that I can have access to it, and I don't have all my money sort of like tied up in these retirement accounts that you can get penalized for taking money out of early. So that's another factor that comes up in all of this. Um, um, they're they're not risk-free, but they usually move differently than the stock market. Um, and it can help you protect your portfolio during many, but not all market declines. So it is good to look at. I think the big thing here is having a well-rounded portfolio. Let's see here. Okay. And then, so bonds add stability, predictable income, and diversification to a portfolio and an investment strategy. And they help create a steadier portfolio, because they're not subject to all of the stock market volatility that our individual stocks and our EFTs um, are are prone to do. Okay, so we're gonna go to our next workbook question, and that is, what situations in life might make adding bonds more important for you? So this is exactly, is completely why my dad recommended these bonds for the money that I have right now. So I run my own business. And so when I get paid by a client, I usually send part of that money to my dad. I live on some of the money and I pay out my bills. But then I also send some of that money to my dad and say, hey, I need this in something shorter term. I want to make a little bit of money. I don't want it to just sit in my savings account. I want it to make some money for me while it's just hanging out. But I don't want to invest it in something that it's being held on to for so long that I can't access it should I need it and not get another client or something happens to me. So that's one circumstance. Another circumstance is just having that balanced portfolio so that you don't have everything in the stock market that can be really crazy nuts sometimes, and having a more steady Eddie type of situation. I could also see where it would be important if you're thinking about, okay, I'm saving money up towards buying a car, buying a real estate, or buying something, but I don't want it to and I know I've got a decent amount of time. You can put it into things like bonds for 6 months and be able to take that out. And then you've made a little bit of money. It doesn't just sit there, it grows for you. Um, and then you can make your purchase after that 6 months. So that's another situation. So I'm going to give you about 90 seconds to write in your workbooks, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about real estate.
Sorry, I'm here. Apologize about that.
You're good. Everything okay, Sheila?
Yeah, I just lost connection, so I'm connecting to my um hotspot right now. So sorry about it.
Okay. All good. That's all good. Okay. All right. Any questions about bonds before we move into real estate?
Miss, I had a question.
Yeah, Haley, what's up? I love all your
Um,
questions.
so circling back to what you said earlier, like the bonds give you interest. What did you mean by that again? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Yeah, for sure. So, bonds can we go back to the last slide?
Mm,
Okay, cool. So, bonds so basically um, when you work with a bond, that bond is you're giving a loan to a company, a government, or a city, and you don't necessarily own something when you give it to the government or the company, but what they do is they give you interest. So for instance, I think one of my bonds that I have is that I don't know what organization it's for. I probably should, y'all. But I have that money invested, and I'm pretty sure that it's that money's going to sit with that organization for 6 months. And for that 6 months, they're going to pay me 3% interest. So every month, well, I think it's at the end of the 6 months, I get paid out 3% interest. So say I have $100 invested in a bond. At the end of that 6 months, they will pay me $3 because they were borrowing my money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so since you allowed them to borrow your money, in return, you're gonna get 3%, right?
Yep, you got it. Yes. Yep. Yep. It's like the opposite of a credit card, right? So, credit card, you're borrowing money from them and you pay them interest. This is like the opposite. You're borrowing somebody else money, so they're going to pay you interest.
So debit cards give you money in return?
No, 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 not
Oh,
generally. Yeah. It's like a credit card. Usually you get if you don't pay your credit card bill every single month, you get charged interest. And a lot of times it's really high, like 20 or 30% interest. And so you have to pay the credit card. Like if you have $100 that you took out on the credit card, you have to pay if your rate is 20%, you'd have to give them $20 every month for borrowing that $100. And this is opposite of that. You're borrowing a company money, so you get paid interest.
so technically credits your money, debits borrowed money, right? In a way.
Um, well, okay, so debit versus credit. Yeah, great
Is that
question.
what, sorry, is that what what
Yeah,
you were talking
well,
about?
yeah. So debit, so credit, when you have a credit card, that's really like you're putting it on somebody else's. So that's not your money. You're borrowing money from them that you have to pay interest on. Debit card, usually that debit card is attached to your checking account and that comes right out of your account. And so there's no interest because it's immediate that it gets taken out of your account.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted, because like I know about credit cards, but you use it
Okay.
as an example, so I just wanted to like
Yeah.
thoroughly understand them. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, yeah. So a bond is like, um, you can take, I have $100 that I've got in my savings account. But I can make more if I buy a bond and borrow that to the government to use for 6 months. And we have an agreement that if I put that money into this bond and I let them have that money and I can't access that money for 6 months, they will give me 3% interest on that $100. So, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to like add in the credit card and make it confusing. It's just like a little bit opposite of you get to be the
I
one
know
that gets.
like yeah, sorry. I know
No,
like nothing of credit cards, so I was like, well, I know like here and there, but
yeah, totally. This is all so confusing. It's taken me years to learn about this stuff, and I still don't know that much about it. So it's just really complicated. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about real estate. Okay. Um, Real estate. This is another avenue that people use to help with investing long term and making money. So there is a few different ways to look up at real estate. So one way is if you buy a house, um, generally over time the value of your house increases. And with that increase on your house, generally, if you keep it for a decent amount of time, I would say, it takes a few years. The longer you have it, the more the value of the home typically grows over time. And so, I bought my very first house when I was, I don't know, I don't know if I must have been right around 30, maybe. I don't know, somewhere in there. And I had that house, I think, for 5 years. And it was a little house. It was just a little baby house. And by the time I sold it, the real estate market did really, really well. And I made almost double what I paid for the house over that time. So it did really, really well in a short amount of time. That's not always typical. And the usually the higher cost of your house, the longer it takes to do something like double. But this was a pretty unique situation. My husband and I moved to Cincinnati and where we live now, and we bought another house and sold that first house. And fortunately, it's done really well. The market's done really well. So that has also grown. But then there's also other ways. I have a friend who bought a house and it is a duplex. So she lives in one part of the house and she rents it out to somebody else in the other part, and she makes money both from the rent that's coming in and then of the house increasing in value as well. And some people have rental properties. So one of the things that's in my dad's portfolio to build wealth is he has an office building that he rents out to the government, for to the Department of Natural Resources, and they pay him rent every month. And so he makes a little money on the rent and the increase of the property goes up. So that's one of the things, the strategies that he has in his portfolio. So there's all kinds of different ways within real estate. Um, there are risks, though. There's lots of risks that can be outside of our control. And one of the biggest risks that has happened is back in 2008. I don't know if you learned about this in school at all, but there was a housing market crash. And it was a very, very, very scary time. Not only did the housing market, Isabella, I see you shaking your head. You know about this? No? Okay. Um, so housing market crash happened. It was a really rough time in 2008. A lot of people, the stock market crashed. A lot of people lost their jobs. Some people lost their homes, unfortunately. It was just a really bad time. So it doesn't happen that often, but it can happen, and there can be big risks with real estate as well. But generally, it is more of a generally slower growing, like medium growing investment for folks. There's also a lot of responsibilities with it as well. So lots to think about in terms of real estate as well. Okay. And I know we're getting really close to time. Well, I'm way over time. I'm so sorry, y'all. Okay. I'm going to give you time to answer your next workbook question, which is, if I can get the next slide, what interests you more about real estate, long-term value or rental income? And it could be both. Let's just tell you the truth. No wrong answer. I'll give you 60 seconds and then we'll come back and close it out very quickly. Haley, thanks for all the great questions. I see the one that you just popped in the chat. So, yeah, great question around the 2008 crash. Yeah, that does not happen very often. So, I'm assuming that y'all have heard about the Great Depression back in like 1920. Yep. Okay. So that was a big crash, and a lot of people lost a lot during that time as well. And then if you just kind of like zoom out and think about markets over time, so there's different markets. There's the stock market, there's the real estate market, there's the job market. There's all kinds of different like markets. And so you'll hear what people refer to as market adjustments. So sometimes the housing market, it will be like the people are moving, they're buying new places, there's demand for homes, and so the price of homes will go up. And sometimes that happens really quickly, and then all of a sudden it will it will go down a little bit because there needs to be a market adjustment. So sometimes the market adjusts and it's not a crash, but it might just pull back a little bit. So these big crashes, they don't happen very often, and there are a lot of regulators and the government and these businesses try so hard not to let crashes happen, but they do happen in certain circumstances. So if you kind of like Google some of the crashes, you'll see like over time, I believe there was something, it's like there's kind of a mini one, if you will, once in a while, but that 2008 crash was a pretty unique experience, and so was the Great Depression. And organizations have learned a lot from those situations. So, um, but it's not to say that it could not happen again, Haley. Yeah, great questions, y'all. Great questions. Okay, woof. Oh man, we're getting into it today. We're at time. I'm so sorry. I know there's so much with this topic. We could have like 3 classes with it. But next week, we're going to talk about understanding your paycheck, W-2 earnings, how to read pay stubs, and then the basics to build some financial confidence. Let's see here. Lots of stuff, announcements. I'm sorry about not having workbook time. Please finish up your workbook, and thank you for all of the feedback that you give me every week. I really appreciate it. It makes I read everything that you write, and I really do take that into consideration for every week. So a few announcements. Junior Achievement Finance Part coming up, 2 opportunities for that. Get your RSVPs in by tomorrow. Ignite, Miller McCoy's coming to chat on February 2nd. Get that in tomorrow as well. The Student Leader Form is now open. College Match Program, please pop in and fill out that form. Free Mustang Immersive Experience is coming up. So traveling through time, you get to experience iconic Mustang movie moments. So a really cool experience that Youth Champions is offering. And the Career Institute Spring 2026 is now open, and you can sign up for that as well. And that looks like it's for alumni
Yeah,
only.
for alumni.
Okay, for alumni. Okay. All right. Woo! Great questions today. I'm sure you probably are leaving here with even more questions, maybe than you had before. But if we can answer anything in our upcoming classes, we will. Thank you so much for staying a little over. I'm sorry I went late, but I'm just making up time from last week when we didn't get to spend all that time together. All right. Have a great week, and don't forget to keep working on your goals.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Megan. Please send an emoji before you go.